decoratingcenter.com. And a good morning. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Art Lewis Show on this Monday, the 22nd of June already. There is an organization that has been around quite a number of years. We're going to talk about its history a little bit and what it's up to these days. It is the Reed Association of Saginaw County. And with us this morning is its director and president. She is Samantha Engel. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
So, Samantha, America's celebrating its 250th, and you are a major in American history.
Yes, I am.
Did you ever use the degree?
I sure did. Yes. I went to graduate school, and I after that worked in public history in museums for a little over a decade. So I was the director of a house museum in Flint, and then I was the historian at Dow Gardens for a number of years.
That, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I think if I stopped 100 people on the street and asked them the jobs that were available to Dow Garden, historian probably would not come up at the top of the list.
No, I was their first full-time historian, so I carved the path. They'd had some people doing things, but they have an incredible archive of letters and photographs to and from Herbert and Grace Dow, Herbert Dow's journals, family photographs. No. The big greenhouse that feels like it's at the back of Dow Gardens was Herbert and Grace's home that they built in 1899. So I did tours and programs in there too. So very rich history there.
So what gets a historian out of the Dow Gardens into the Reed Association?
Yeah, so I live in Saginaw County. My husband is from Hemlock. I'm from the west side of the state originally, but we were living in, and still do live in, Thomas Township.
So do I.
Yep, and I was living in Thomas Township area the whole time when I worked in Flint and then worked in Midland, so obviously working close to home is nice.
Driving whichever way you went.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think obviously historical education and people knowing what happened in the country's past is really important. But, at a certain level, we need to make sure that people can read before we can really kind of teach them that history and help them understand that. And so when I saw the job posting for the Reed Association available, helping kids at that very initial level learn this foundational skill and be able to grow up to be the best versions of themselves seemed like a really natural step. It might seem unnatural, but for me it felt natural to help them become who they should be, and then somebody else now can help teach them the history.
So give us the history, if you know it, of the Reed Association.
Yeah, so Reed began in 1966, so this year we turned 60.
Is this an offshoot of the reading is fundamental
philosophy
that we had in the country?
No, not really. It was a crime occurred in Saginaw County, in the city, and when some folks in the community found out that it was committed by some youths who had dropped out of school and couldn't read and whatever, they thought, well, look at this problem. Maybe there's something that we can do about this. Help these kids read. They'll stay in school. They can become successful, become good residents, and we can help Saginaw as we're helping these individual kids. And so that started in the summer of 1966. Actually, it was the July 4th weekend. And then throughout sort of the fall, they were recruiting and developing what would become the mentor program. And then in early 1967, recruited a whole bunch of volunteers to start working with kids.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But I do have to ask what you feel when you hear that Michigan, where we spend a ton of money on education, ranks 44th in reading level at third grade.
Yeah, it's obviously not great. There's a problem. If things were perfect, the Reed Association wouldn't have to exist, because every school would be equipped with every tool that they needed to help the individual needs of every student become fluent readers and good students and have a successful future. But that isn't the case. And so Reed is here to help kind of improve that educational equity throughout the county. And so, if the teacher in the school doesn't have time to help little Billy who has a very specific reading need, we can step in and give them a mentor, and the mentor can help work with little Billy to become better, or they can enter our tutoring program. All of our services are free, so they're accessible to anybody in the county who needs help.
Do you work with the schools at all?
Yeah, we do. The mentor program requires a close collaboration with the schools because the mentors are actually going into the school and working with the kids there during the school day. And so, different schools work the program differently. Some focus on very specific grades. Some just have teachers who are really eager to have the reading support there. But the teachers are identifying the students in their class who need that extra support. And so the mentors work with them throughout the school year for about a 30-minute meeting every week for the school year.
So if we looked at the students that have been through the READ program versus those that have not, would we see a difference?
In theory. So we collect data. READ, since all of our programs are free, we're funded through grants and individual donors and things like that. And so we have to prove that our programs are helpful. And so at the beginning of our mentor program, or when a student just enters the tutoring program, whatever it is, we do different assessments to see where they're at and then to see where they are at the end of the program. And so for mentoring in particular, the mentors complete an oral fluency test. So they're testing to see how many words at a grade level a student can read in a minute. And they're asking them some other questions too. How much do you like reading? Do you read outside of school? Those kinds of things. And then at the end, they're retesting them with that same list of words. And I forget the percentage off the top of my head, but when we look at that or comments that the mentors make about their students' attitude towards reading improving or their comprehension skills and their confidence growing, it's about 90% of the students in the program improve throughout the school year to at some level.
Which is needed.
It sure is, yes.
What do you think about this movement toward returning to phonics?
I think it's important. We have, sometimes we encounter kids who have made it to middle school and they struggle to sound out words. And so we are actually, with this new push and some of the things that the governor has said about returning to the science of reading, we are purchasing some extra supplemental tools that mentors will be able to use that reinforce those ideas as well. A mentor can sit and read with the student, but if that student really doesn't know how to sound out words, we want to make sure that the mentor has the tools they need to help them.
Phonics definitely will help them to read.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it will not help them to spell. There is a downside.
Yeah. At least a lot of the programs, a lot of the tools that we're looking at, the kids are working on building letters or building words with blocks and filling in blanks and looking at their noun or their vowels versus their consonants and things like that. So hopefully, we're not going to institute spelling tests at the mentor program level or anything
Good
like
thing.
I had. But
Good thing.
Right. But hopefully as they're learning this, that will help them, pick up some of those skills as well.
Talking to Samantha Engel. She is the director and president of READ Association of Saginaw County. More on that when we return. And we'll talk about their various programs after these notes.
Want to update your kitchen without...
Hi, welcome back here on WSGW, the Art and Lawyer Show. We're talking to Samantha Engel. She is the director and president of the READ Association of Saginaw County. Let's talk about some of the things under the READ heading, Family Literacy Center. I can say it.
Yeah.
That place.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so that is our programmatic space. So we are located at 100 South Jefferson. So we're right next to the Castle Museum, which is great for me as a historian. I can look out my window and see the castle. But there we host our tutoring program. We host regular sessions of our family literacy program, Raising Readers Academy. And starting next week, it will host our summer mentor program. So we're really able to do a lot inside of that space. When they opened that in 2022, before I started at Reed, it really opened a lot of doors and allowed us to expand our programming.
So let's talk about the mentor program because mentors are needed.
They sure are.
They are your volunteers, are
Yes.
they not?
Yep.
What's the demand? How many do you need versus how many do you have?
Well, I always like to say that our impact is only limited by the number of mentors that we have. So the last 2 school years, we've had between 280 and 290 students in the program.
Students.
Yes. And so that is roughly 150 mentors. Each mentor works with 2 students generally. And so I know the math doesn't quite math out, but that's roughly where we're at. Yes. And so the mentors are at schools throughout Saginaw County. There are a few schools where we don't have current active programs like Birch Run and Chesaning. We have had in the past, but right now we don't. But we're in Frankenmuth, St. Charles, Merrill, Freeland, Swan Valley, the city, the township, at Carlton, everywhere. And so there are some schools where we have a nice little army of mentors. We've got 10, 15 people going in. So that's, 20 to 30 students who are being served by our program. But we have a few schools where we only have 2 or 3 mentors going in. And so in particular, we need more help at the city schools and some of the schools in the township. Yeah.
So what does a mentor do?
A mentor signs up for 1 school year, and it's a little bit shorter than a school year. You usually don't get started until sometime in October or November. That just gives the teachers enough time to figure out who needs the help. So it's a shortened school year, and they're going into the school once a week. They're meeting with each student that they're meeting with one-on-one for 20 to 30 minutes. And so while you're there, you'll read a book. Maybe there's a certain thing that the teacher tells you that the student needs help on, and you can focus your attentions there. We have different word games. We have a lot of resources that our mentors can check out from our office.
So obviously, you're interacting with youngsters.
Yep.
Takes a certain skill set.
Yeah.
So is there training involved if a mentor becomes a mentor for the Reed Association?
Yeah, we host a training every fall, and I don't have the date off the top of my head, but it is Thursday in late September. We host it at the Castle Museum, and we can fit enough people there. So we have, usually about 60 folks who come in. Sometimes it's returning mentors who are coming to just refresh supplies, and we try to bring in some other extra learning moment too. Last year we had an education professor from SVSU came in and shared some tips on how to help teach your students sound out words. So we try to incorporate something like that. And I take time going over, you have a little handbook that you follow, going over the items in the handbook, the things you have to do, like that initial oral fluency assessment and things. And then at each school, there's a site coordinator, sometimes volunteer, sometimes staff member, and they're the one that then throughout the school year, the mentor works with most closely. They say, hey, it's going to be this day at this time. You're going to go to this teacher. Here's your things. And they really help orient the mentors at that school.
So the youngsters that come into the Reed program, do they have a choice? I mean, is it voluntary, or are they assigned by the teacher, you will go to the mentor?
They are assigned, yes. It's not a choice. Every once in a while, there's an extenuating circumstance where, if a student after, a period of time is still incredibly fighting it, that perhaps, they switch out to a different student who might not be so resistant to working on their reading. But a lot of the mentors, I have our board president actually has a great story about working with a student 2 school years ago, and she would sit down and not read. And finally she said, well, I can just sit here and watch you until you start reading. And from that point on, she started working on it. And I think the kids are they don't have strong confidence because they know that they're not reading at the same level that their classmates are. Maybe reading isn't at all a focus at home. They're not encouraged to work on this skill. They think they can get by without it because they've gotten by this far. And they're elementary students, but they still think, I don't need to do this, right? And so the mentors, if they can break through that and get the student reading, those are some of the most impactful moments for the mentors as well. And they're very moved by it.
There's another side of this that, we don't discuss enough, and that's the parent's role in education. What's the parent's role in reading?
Well, I like to think of parents. We talk about this in the office a lot. A parent is the child's first educator. They're the ones during those first years at home. Even, you think, well, this is a baby. Babies can't read. But their little brain is processing all of the words that you say around them. It's hearing that. And for those first few years, it's sort of building those language skills, those centers in the brain. And so, unfortunately, we have these smartphones, and a parent might find it easy to, I'm not a parent, but I find myself looking at my phone far too much. And so, if you're spending more time looking at your phone than you are talking out loud, you can even just narrate like, I am going to boil the water for pasta now. And it seems silly, but the young child is still hearing this. And so by doing that, by sitting down, putting a book in front of them, reading to them before bed, you're doing that very early engagement that is going to set the child up for success when they reach preschool and kindergarten.
I remember growing up, it was a very long time ago, before there was a read association and all that. And my parents, early on in my life, when I was 2, 3, 4 years old, bought me these big picture books that had pictures and words in them, various topics, what have you, And then, as I got a little older, they started buying me, I think they were called Landmark books, but they were history books. You would have loved them.
Yes.
All history. And they were easy to read for a youngster. They were written in a style that was easy to follow. And I think that's what got me hooked on the fact that I need to be able to read. And it wasn't what the teacher did in school. It was what my parents did at home that really, kind of focused on it.
Yeah. I mean, the parent, you're setting the norms in your household in those early years. And if, I grew up with a bedtime story, before bed every night. And so, that came to be an expectation, and I looked forward to that. And that was, good, like, parent-child bonding time, but also I saw books as this little fun thing that was part of the routine. And, now you should see the book collection I have at my house. But yeah, I mean, you don't realize what you're doing, I think, especially when the child is really young, but it's all very important.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, because the foundation is set at a very young age.
Yep, it sure is.
It almost seems now, we realize that third grade reading is way off in this state. And it's almost after the fact, because it should have been addressed early on, and
yeah,
at least we're getting around to it. I mean,
right. Yeah, and there are a lot of, different states have, picked up, I can't think of the article that I read. That was the one. Yeah, they realized there was a problem, and, there are a lot of stereotypes and ideas out there about the South and Mississippi and things, but they saw a problem and they started addressing it. And so hopefully, if that is able to happen here, and Read keeps helping students with their their problems
Mississippi
too.
went from like near the bottom of the pack to like second in the country or something. It's amazing.
Yeah. And there are a lot of different programs out there too, and some have a cost to them, some are free, some schools can pick up, but there are even resources out there for parents. And that's one thing that we try to do too. Maybe a parent calls us and says, hey, my kid's struggling to read. I'm not really sure what my next step should be. And so, we talk to them about our programs, and if that's not a fit, we can still point them to some of those things.
All right, let me take another break here. We'll come back. One final segment with Samantha, because she has a meeting to get to this morning as we talk about the Read Association of Saginaw County.
Jeff Gronsky here with Auto Break.
Back with you, chatting with Samantha Engel, Director and President of the Reed Association of Saginaw. Two things to end with. Tell me about the Literacy Academy.
Yeah, so Raising Readers Academy is our family literacy program, and that is families come, so parents and children. And the idea is that kids are introduced, so it's like pre-K through third grade kids. So they're introduced to some different activities and games that make reading fun. We're hoping to improve their attitudes towards reading. And for those younger kids, introduce them to a classroom setting. And parents actually engage in conversations about ways to support their kids at home. And so there is everybody starts together, then they divide parents and kids, and then they all come back to do an activity related to the day's theme. But the program is important because a lot of times we find generational patterns of illiteracy or reading struggles. If a parent didn't know how to read, perhaps their parents hadn't known how to read very well. So with their own kids, they don't have the tools they need, and maybe they aren't at home, pressuring them to do your homework, practice your reading, and they don't know where to turn. And so this is meant to help break some of those cycles.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Today. All right, let's. I want to end up talking about events because you got one coming up.
We sure do. Yes, our biggest event of the year is our Deer at the Zoo. So it's Deer, DEAR, Drop Everything and Read at the Saginaw Children's Zoo, and that is happening in 2 days. It is Wednesday, June 24th, from 10 until 3.
And how long has that been going on?
It's been going on for over 20 years. I think 2002 for some reason is the first year that sticks in my head. A long time.
Yeah, it's been quite a long time. So what happens at the zoo?
Yeah, so we, this year, to celebrate our 60th anniversary, we are letting the first 200 kids in for free. We're covering the admission for them. Usually it's 100. We're doubling it this year. And we have sponsors to help with the free rides. So all day families can ride the carousel and the train for free, thanks to First State Bank. And we are giving away books to every child that comes. So they get to pick out a new book to take home, and we'll be joined by about 30 other vendors who will also have activities and games and resources to share with the families. And it's just the cost of zoo admission. Everything else is included.
Like it's grown a lot.
Yes, it has. Yeah. I mean, this is only my third deer at the zoo that I've been here for. But yeah, looking at those early deers, it's become pretty big.
So reading, I mentioned early on when I grew up, the term was reading is fundamental. That used to be the catchphrase, So it's not that we haven't recognized the importance of reading, but we haven't, at least here in Michigan, we haven't handled it very well as an educational system. Yeah,
I mean, and I think, different... what do I want to say? It is nationwide. The average adult, or 54% of adults, are reading at a 6th grade level or below. So that's more than half of U.S. adults.
How do we determine that level? What does that mean? What can't they read?
I mean, I don't know all of the ins and outs of how the testing goes, but there is a regular assessment that's done and very specific definitions that are attached to each level of reading, and if you're reading proficiently or not proficiently or at a base level, and it's certain things. Comprehension is added in, like, can you read words and understand it? Can you read words, understand it, and then share it in a way that's understandable? And so there are different things incorporated in that, and that all depends on which study was being done, but that's the widely accepted statistic for right now. And so it's everywhere, and we all need to do something about it. And I think it's a lot of different things are at play here, including better resources and things at schools that are needed, especially if you look at the disparity between schools that are in wealthier areas versus areas that don't have the resources, just the way school funding is handled, particularly here in Michigan. But then also, this switch to screens, and I always sound like an anti-techie person, but I have screens, but I try not to use them too much. But studies are now showing that, when a child reads something on a screen, they don't retain it as well as when they read it on paper.
And that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And the last question. Have we done much in the area of recognizing dyslexia?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about the history of testing for dyslexia and how we look at it, but I know that there are changes coming here in Michigan that are going to that are going to require or make testing for dyslexia in schools
More mandatory.
Yes. And so at Reed, we're kind of trying to, our Family Literacy Center coordinator is sort of staying on top of that, and she's watching what that means, how it could be implemented, in our district, and does that mean we'll have a bunch of people needing our services?
Deer at the Zoo?
Yes.
When and what time?
Wednesday, June 24th from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m.
And if someone wants to volunteer or become a mentor, where can they find out more information?
Yeah, they can we're on Facebook. We're very active on Facebook. So if you follow us there, we're the Reed Association of Saginaw County. And there are regular posts about our need for mentors. We need a couple for our summer mentor program even. And you can also head to our website. We're working on doing an upgrade to that so it matches our new branding. But you can head to our website and find information or contact information. You can apply right online and we can get that to you.
All right. Well, Samantha, I know you have to get to a meeting, so I'm going to let you go.
All right.
But thank you for being with us.
Yeah,
Do it
thank
again.
you. All right. Sounds great. Thank you.
Samantha Engel, Director and President of the Reed Association of Saginaw County. We will take a break, come back, and have something to talk about here in the last few minutes of the program.
Ready to update your home?
All right, back with you. Just a few minutes left in the hour. I pulled this story down from online because it caught my attention, particularly given my age. For those of you that don't know, I'm 83 years old, and I feel at 83 competent to do my job and have the energy and ability to do my job. So I would not want somebody to come along and say, well, talk show hosts, they should be forced to retire at 70, Well, the reason I pulled this story down has nothing to do with talk show hosts. It's written by someone who says, it's an opinion piece. It was in USA Today. Headline is, I'm 89. Anyone over 75 is too old to be president. And then the story goes on, and someone makes the suggestion that we should have an age limit on voters. And to me, all of this is nonsense. We have a lot of industries that are, by their very nature, age limited. For example, if you're an airline pilot, you have to retire at 65. Is that necessary? Personally, I don't think so, because I think you're throwing away the greatest amount of experience. Now, if there were some historical reference that said once pilots reach 65, beyond that they have more accidents and more incidents, you might have to consider it. But I don't think that stats show that. In the same way, in the clergy, for example, bishops have to submit their letter of resignation. I think it's 70, if I'm not mistaken. And they have to submit their letter of resignation to the Pope, who then takes it under consideration and eventually replaces that bishop, and that's when that bishop retires. Again, are we not throwing out the baby with the bathwater? I do not believe there should be an age limit on being president of the United States. I think the voters make that choice. If they pick someone too old to do the job, then you suffer the consequences. And the other side of that coin is there are a lot of people in their 80s who are very, very smart and very capable and have sufficient energy. So I don't believe in an age limit for politicians. In the same way, and this story goes on, it says, don't stop age limits for elected officials. Voters should be capped too. Oh, wait a minute now. The last time I looked, people in their 70s, 80s, 90s were all citizens of the United States that lived here. And as citizens of the United States, they have the same rights as a 40-year-old. Because the people elected also govern their life. So who's to say you're too old to vote? You strip away my ability to pick the people I want to represent me? Now, are all 80-year-olds cognizant and aware and smart enough to pick the right person? Maybe not, but that's also true of 20-year-olds. I do not believe in age limits. Because, first of all, everybody ages differently. There are many people capable in their senior years, and they should have the ability to select their representatives just like everybody else. As a matter of fact, in some ways, they may be smarter than the younger generations because they have history on their side. They can look back and see who've been elected before and how it worked out. So I am dead set against age limits for the president, dead set against age limits for voters. I just think it's a cop-out. We the people. It doesn't say we the people under age 70, under age 65. It says we the people. All of us. We're all in it together. From the youngest to the oldest. We are represented by the same people. We should have a right to select who those people are. So it just caught my attention this morning, and I thought, I got to say something about it. So there you go. I will now step off my 83-year-old soapbox and not bore you anymore with that. We'll take our last break. We'll tell you what's ahead on Focus. Coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Big insurance, big pharma.
This week's Rocket Grab deal for Levi's Food and Spirits is officially sold out. Levi's is located in the heart of Saginaw.
So for this Monday morning, I will be back on Wednesday. Be off tomorrow. Our invitational golf outing is tomorrow, and I'm participating. Stick around because coming up here on Focus, we're going to focus on one of the major festivals of the area, the St. Stan's Festival. And we will find out more about it this morning. It follows the news. We have ABC News coming up at the top of the hour. They'll bring you up to date on the world and the nation. Jonathan Dent's in for Michael Percha today, and he will fill you in on the region and the state. I'm Art Lewis, and we'll be back with you on Focus right after the news.
Broadcasting from the